Hey now, welcome to another edition of Sunday Cup Weekly. I believe it's our fifth episode of season 18. We had the week off, so we're just kind of previewing next week. We got a little topic, a special in-studio guest. We're going to announce later, kind of secret in-studio guest. Me and Carlin are here to bring you another half-hour wrap-up preview of the Sunday Cup League for the Gran Turismo 6 game on the PlayStation 3 console. We've had this game here for a little bit. We've had our league since 2010, racing on the Gran Turismo games. Started out on Gran Turismo 5, and we've had a lot of fun since there, with our main two classes, Class 1 events being our Winston Cup stock car and our IndyCar open wheel. So, with that being said, we've had some good races. We've had the week off for Valentine's Day. Everybody's kind of had a week to recuperate here. We just wanted to go ahead and look at the updated point standings for a couple of our major series here, both Class 1. We had updates from 2 weeks ago. So we had an awesome race in Indianapolis. Jog your memory back a week to the race at Indianapolis for the Indy cars. J-Dog being victorious in Daytona. Colio finished second. Colio was victorious in Indianapolis, and J-Dog finished second. Those guys are 1-2 in the points, with Kip and Carlin knocking on the back door, but they are about 15, 16 points back apiece. So, Freak at your top five. He's looking pretty good. Trying to make it happen there. He's got 40 points, so he's only 22 behind the leader. And it's still very early in the season. Two starts. Those two guys that win a piece, and they're practically neck and neck with the 2 bonus points for fastest lap. Flip over here. Fastest lap, bonus point. 2 bonus points for Colio. And that's putting 2 points ahead of J-Dog. So they're neck and neck. Colio keeps wrapping up that extra point, and that's putting him in the lead of the championship. And then our other update was our Camel GT points. We had kind of a crazy finish there with the Camel GT race at Indianapolis, the Chevrolet 200. That was when we kind of had our mass exodus there. Everybody was popping, blowing motors after the halfway point. And we know in the Sunday Cup League, after you get halfway, it's an official race. So our winner was Rookie Smooth. Smooth 560 pulled off the win because he was the last car to blow his motor. So everybody was kind of having, kind of went in waves. I think 3 major waves. We talked about it last week. But there is our finishing order with Smooth first, Colio second, and J-Dog, me, and Milwaukee wrapping up your top 5. We do have points updated for those cars, so no big surprise here, people. Milwaukee 96 sitting on top of the points. He has a 12-point lead over Rookie and newest addition to the Winner's Circle Club, Smooth 560. He's kind of one of the weirdest ways of getting into the Winner's Circle, but as we say every day here, win's a win in the Sunday Cup League. Ain't easy to come by. Looks like I'm 3rd place in the Camel GT points, so I have to keep showing up to those. Carlin, our GT competitor, he's always having good runs. He's 16 points behind. WC Baseball's looking good in 5th place, 20 points back. It's going to be awesome races. Those always show up. We show up for those races. We always seem to have good races. It was kind of different being on the oval. I really would like to see how that would have kind of sorted out there. The race would have gone the full distance, but it didn't. That's the way it goes. So yeah, basically that's all the wrapping up we have to do. We're gonna introduce our fellow panelists here. We've got Carlin Hicks. You want to say hi to the audience?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies, you think we got ladies listening?
I'm sure we do.
Yeah, they might be over here and somebody else. All right.
They're always hanging around my pit box.
Oh, okay. I see. All right, and then we also have our third guest tonight. Twindy One's in studio, the rookie competitor. How's it going, Twindy?
It's doing good, but Carlin, I think you're mistaking your pit bops for mine.
Oh, always with the jazz, Twindy. All right. Well, our topic today is driver etiquette. I mean, obviously, everybody has a little bit different view of driver etiquette. Um, how far to push it. If you're a rookie, what's too much aggression to show, and basically, how to perform out on the track and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. Um, we'll get into basically, if we'll start out where you start out. If you're a rookie, come into the league. Um, we'll start with Carlin. What do you think aspects you need to kind of portray and show all the other competitors you are supposed to be here and you're a viable competitor? What's it like for a rookie coming into the league, Carlin?
Well, I know from my rookie season, season 12, the level of competition is so high in SCL that you get a lot of guys. I was not one of these, but you get a lot of guys who are used to dominating in public rooms, and it can be a wake-up call for them that you have to learn not just how to be fast, but how to run these long races. I mean, even if you're a quick driver, you generally will get beat on strategy. And the etiquette, really, I know when I was a rookie, my initial goal was simply to get around the track. It was to run a clean race and not make a mistake that put me farther back than I had to be. Don't make a mistake getting into the pit. I didn't want my name called for having caused a caution. And really, I think that your first season, you should be focused on running against the other rookies and staying out of trouble. You don't want your name popping up a whole lot. Everybody causes cautions once in a while, but what you don't want is to have the officials getting your name on the official complaint after a race very often. You don't want to see your name half a dozen times in a season. And really, I think that you spend that first season doing that. And I know that it took me until my second, third season until I was starting to get competitive. And at that point, you're a rookie, you do take a little bit of roughness. Guy won't run behind you because he doesn't trust that you're going to go smooth and fast enough that he's not going to lose the front runners. And so guys will just kind of dive underneath you, try to get around you. You have to prove that you can run with the front runners until they're going to give you that break. And that's nothing that's against anybody personally. We all went through it. And even guys who go through rough times, when Johnny was behind on his equipment, he's the founder of the league, and Johnny became one of those guys that had to watch the veterans, the front runners pushing them out of the way. It's difficult to deal with, and you have to show that you can run with them cleanly. And I know that by my second or third season, I got to the point where I felt comfortable enough to give it back a little bit. I know I mentioned one of the drivers I have the most respect for in the league is former Winston Cup champ Tony Moose. And Tony used to rough me up in the early days, not in any malicious way, but just he was a championship contender, and he wasn't going to mess around with me back in 8, if I didn't have my stuff together. And by my second or third season, I got competitive enough to where when Tony would go give me that bumper, I'd give it back. And the next thing you know, Tony's one of the guys I run with as cleanly and as well as anybody in the league. And I think you put in your first season, you showed the other guys that you cleanly, and then they'll give you more leeway as far as, what you can get away with. And once you become a veteran, you're given the benefit of the doubt by other drivers a lot of the time. I know when I make a mistake and get into somebody, their first thought is always, they don't yell, Carlin, what the hell? They say, Carlin, what happened? Because they know that I didn't do it on purpose, that something must have happened to me. And but it is tough for the rookies. I mean, Twindy's a rookie now. I'm sure he can comment, as far as how what's your impressions of how the veterans have treated you and whatnot?
It's been pretty mixed because I'll get roughed up a little bit, but I think mainly you got to try to show respect if you was one of the slower guys. Like I'm usually just want to slow the guys. If they're about to lap you, don't give them hell for it. Just get out their way. They'll remember that most likely. And if comes to stuff like that, it's I get roughed up all the time, and sure you might get a little bit angry about it, but yeah, I suck it up. They're not used to you. They don't know how good you are, and you're in the way most of the time.
Exactly. I mean, you're looking at the fact that we always say how uncannily realistic our simulation turns out to be. I mean, we have silly season, we have the whole bit, and the truth is that in just like in real life racing series, those guys race together every week. That's part of the reason you have to get along with the other drivers is because if you really get into it with somebody, you're going to see them tomorrow, you're going to see them next week. You're going to have to, if you want to race in the big leagues with us, you have to coexist with them. And when you're a new guy, I mean, it's the same thing, the new guys go through in NASCAR. I mean, how many guys have made their debut at the Daytona 500, and what did you hear in the post-race interview from every single one of them? I could have probably done something, but no one would go with me. And that's exactly, you have to establish yourself. And if you're a patient enough driver, and if you're serious enough about your racing to where that won't make you quit immediately and go back to the public dirty NASCAR rooms where you can do what you want, you'll find the experience all the richer for it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And the big thing is having the right equipment. Obviously, if you come in here, you're not really a high-budget racer, like Twindy is running on your controller. It's tough. I mean, because you never really can compete. Even if you know you are the best, you're not going to compete with the guys with the wheels. But you do notice that with most of the rookies in this league, if they stay with our league, they will eventually scrape together the money and invest in a wheel so they can be competitive like I had to do and run up there with the top guys. But until you do that, you just kind of have to be clean and stay out of everybody's way because, you are at a deficit sometimes.
I did that myself. I went through it. I had to get a wheel to get competitive. And I will tell the guys that are because it is a big jump because you're worried that on this wheel and it's not going to get any better. Let me tell you something to anybody who's worrying about it. If you are a good driver on a controller, you will be a good driver on a wheel. I mean, everybody remembers myself, DeCamber, J-Vic. We're all part of the group that was controller racers. And when we got the update that put us behind the 8-ball, equipment-wise with the wheel guys, you would think that, it's all start. I thought when I got it, I'm going to be starting from scratch. But that's not the case. Me, Vic, and DeCamber were immediately as good or better than we were on the controllers. If you're a good driver on a controller, you'll be a good driver on the wheel. You're developing the same skill set as far as car control, decision making, and it really is worth it. And like you said, I can speak for the other veterans now that I'm not that rookie anymore. When you come in like Twindy's doing, and you take your lumps and you make the races and you help fill the field out, and you work to qualify your way in when a lot of these races are full, you get an incredible amount of respect from the veteran drivers. I mean, we all look at those guys when they do get competitive as, we're happy for them because we know that they had to put in the work, that they were serious about it. The same thing with Johnny. When you got your equipment, I would have loved to have won the Grand National Championship last season. It didn't break my heart to see you get that after you went through 4 or 5 seasons, down, budget racing.
Yeah, I can attest like everybody else. I mean, you feel like you're competitive enough to be racing with everybody, but your times just don't add up, and you can't ever catch them, and they start pulling away from you. It's easy to get discouraged, but it's the real racers that don't get discouraged, keep plugging away at it, do what they got to do to get where they got to get, and, show some true heart by actually sticking with it and becoming one of the SCL regulars. Even if you don't get a wheel, like the guys that still show up every, like Norm shows up, or some of those guys that run controllers competitively, it really shows that, you're above the rest. I'm sure if Norm got a wheel, man, he'd be whooping us every race.
Well, Norm's a good driver. Norm's a real good driver, and I've seen him. He had a wheel briefly that I think it malfunctioned on him or something, and he was getting right up there with the rest of us. And like I said, if you're a good driver on a controller, you'll be a good driver on the wheel. It's just a matter of retraining your muscle memory, and that's all it is. And like I said, the guys who go through that, they have the maximum amount of respect from the veterans because we know what you went through. Because most of us went through it ourselves at some point.
Yep. The main thing for being a rookie, like they said, is just staying out of the way of everybody, letting them pass you, being on top of it, and seeing where everybody is when they're coming up behind you, and just not making any big waves, sticking with it, learning as much as possible. And that's pretty much what you got to do when you're a rookie in this league. But when you do start getting a little bit sea legs as far as the league goes and running every week, you do have people that start becoming more competitive and they start trying to push it more. So you get people that are, they feel like they're running competitively and getting up there and doing battle with people, where other people feel they might be getting up there and doing some malicious stuff. There's a fine line between racing somebody hard and doing something that, is kind of considered dirty. I mean, dirty is a term that gets thrown around kind of loosely to some people, but to say somebody's driving dirty in this league, you're really saying something, especially with some of these veteran drivers. They don't drive dirty. Sometimes they'll wreck you. Sometimes they'll get into it with you. They're just trying to race hard, and, sometimes they get a little over their head. Everybody does. But the main thing is to feel like you're not driving dirty. And if somebody says you're driving dirty, that's on them because you just race them as best you can. That's how I feel.
Oh yeah, I can attest that as the competition director, I do a lot of race reviews. I've, along with the other officials, I've had a big hand in how the rules have been refined in my time in the league to where we've gotten it as clean and as good as the racing is. And I'll tell you guys, one of the reasons why we don't like that, I personally don't like to hear the guys arguing about an incident on the mic during the race, is because 95% of the time when I review an incident, it's a racing accident. Somebody got dirty air, or the guy that you think turned you got a bump in the corner at exactly the wrong time. That's almost always what it is. And then when it's not, it's, everybody has growing, I know what you're talking about, Johnny, with the growing pains. Once you start getting competitive, now you have to figure out, how do I race hard with these guys? Now you're ready to push it, and you can actually, there's growing pains with that. You're learning how to toe that line. And by and large, like you said, it's been so long since we've had to penalize someone in this league for being blatantly dirty. I mean, the worst we've seen in the last 3 or 4 seasons is somebody who, under caution, will come up and give a bump to somebody they think wrecked them. And we'll just kind of holler at them on the mic, and they'll get back in line. But the days where we had somebody getting pissed off and then turning someone in the corner, I think the peer pressure from the rest of the field, having to go under caution again because you got pissed off, is usually enough to keep people behaved. And I can tell you from racing in other leagues and racing in other rooms, we keep it clean and green a lot longer than anybody else does. And it really is just a matter of keeping your tempers in check. Like I said, whenever something happens, 95% of the time, and that's not an exaggeration, it's just a racing incident. He might have been putting himself in a position that he shouldn't have, but it was never a dirty move. And believe me, if somebody's putting themselves in a position that they shouldn't be, and you send the report to myself or any of the other race officials asking to look at it, and we see it, that person, they will be made aware of what we think they had done. And I think that's the key for a while. That's the key to race etiquette, is just, we don't want to hear it in the rooms, because most of the time you're wrong. I'm just going to flat out tell you guys, you're wrong most of the time when you think you know what happened during a race. Even if you think it's plain as day, like, hey, Twindy just turned me in the corner, took me out. Most of the time you go look at that replay and you realize he got off the throttle, the guy behind him bumped him. It really wasn't on him, it was the guy behind him. And I think that's the key to the etiquette we want, is just to understand that if you send the report to the race officials, it will be looked at and an assessment will be made on it. And if you don't do that, then you don't really have a leg to stand on later on when you say, well, this guy's wrecked me 5 times. Like, we've heard guys get in arguments and say, that guy's taken me out 3 times this season. And I'll be like, I haven't seen the first report from you about it. So it's news to me. So the point is the best way to do it, guys, is just keep it to yourself in the room. Go take a look at the replay after the race. And when you see what you thought you saw, you send us the report with the lap number, and it will be looked at. I can promise you.
Yeah, but pretty much for the most time, you know whether it was something that is going to be penalizable or not, or whether it's just kind of in that gray area of, he got into me, do me bad this time, do me twice, I might get you back sometime. For the most part, we let you police yourself, but we don't like stepping in, but we have to sometimes, and that's the way it goes. We have to lay down the law eventually when things start getting out of hand. So we don't ever want it to get to that. And basically, if everybody minds their P's and Q's and portrays good driver etiquette, we don't ever have to deal with you. That's what we want. Just want good, clean racing where everybody's having fun.
Oh yeah, we have a good bunch of guys, like we've said. The veterans who've been around, even guys a lot longer than me, like Tony Moose and guys like that, have all said that the group we have now is, far and away the best we've ever had. I mean, we have our rookies are good. We have rookies like Twindy here who comes in, runs a lot of the practice sessions, run clean races. We have a good field from top to bottom, and we usually don't have very many issues, and that's part of the reason for the popularity of the league and why we consider it the big league for domestic style racing.
Yeah, I mean, we say that we're probably the cleanest, fairest, most competitive league on the game. And, we've kind of searched long and high for guys that do what we do, and there's been a lot of people trying to copy it. We're not trying to blow it in smoke, but there's a reason we have almost 300 people in our league. And, people like seeing the numbers, but they like seeing all these events and everything we got going on. Well, speaking of the events, our next one is going to be Indy Karts at Motegi Super Speedway. That's tonight. I think, Twindy, you might have a word or two to say about the last Indy Kart race we had at Greenville.
Oh, you mean the one that you said Cole won, but meanwhile I actually won it?
Yeah, I wasn't real too sure on what actually happened at the end of there. So it was a good race, and now that you jogged my memory, I do remember that you held off Cole at the end there. I think he got off track too a little bit. But how do you like that Indy Kart series, Twindy?
I don't like the carts. I just show up and race it. That simple. But yeah, I'm not good with the carts.
He's very much like his team owner, myself. I've mentioned it before on previous broadcasts. I will never understand how, I can be world class in an Indy car, but you put me in a cart and I'm completely lost. And it's not just the setup. I mean, I could work on the setup and get it good. I've never handled. I don't handle the carts real well. And JME Motorsports, I don't know what it is, but JME Motorsports has a terrible track record in the Indy Kart series.
Well, Danamore's been turning it up lately. I know Benson Speed Equipment fisherman Ben got his one championship back in the day. But those are usually good races. That's going to be held in the public club lobby. So that's going to be a good race. We are at Motegi Super Speedway, so you're going to want to wind your transmission out for all that fun stuff. But it should be a good race kicking off about 6:45 in the public lobby. So once you see it go up there, go ahead and send us a message. We'll call you in. We're probably going to have a couple of public people just wander in, and they'll get to see how fun the league is too. But then after we get done with that, we're going to mosey on over to our club event, and we're going to run the Honda 75. Carlin, what do you think these Indy Lights are going to do at Motegi?
And the Indy Lights races are I mean, it is an ultimate pack race. It's one of the races. It's a great training for the IndyCar race because it's very similar to how you're going to, obviously not the same speed, but how you're going to have to handle the car. It's one of those where if you make the slightest mistake, you're going to lose the draft. So the guys who do well in that race, because they traditionally have to go long green runs, is you just got to stay with the group for the first part of the race, and then towards the latter half of the race is when you want to, start worrying about your track position. Like I said before, I don't get to run Indy Lights as much as I like, but I think it's, especially as we get more ovals in the series, it's a great training ground for the Indy cars. And I hope one day I'll be able to, muster a full program again for the Indy Lights series.
Yep, they're always fun. That's a good, entry level. You're going to get your regular Indy cars. What do you think about the Indy cars, the Motegi? How's this race going to play out for you, Wendy?
The Indy cars.
Well, the Indy Lights and Motegi.
Oh, the Indy Lights. I'm just gonna sit there and I'm gonna try to hang on to the draft and see what I can do at the end. Really, if I can do anything.
Yeah, the IndyCar race will show you a little bit of how it's going to run, but kind of a whole different animal. With the Indy Lights, let's see, we got our Indy Lights. That's going to be on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have our California Grand Prix. Qualifying for that goes up tonight, Mobile One Pole Day. So they're out at Willow Springs. That's a tough track. But I think, these Corvette Z06s are definitely up to the task. We're running real hard around that tough road course out in California. What do you think, Carlin? What do we expect for tomorrow night's California Grand Prix?
Well, we kick off Willow Springs week with this. Obviously, we got the stock car races there this weekend. The Z06 has looked fantastic throughout testing at this track. You can push them hard. They do give you a little bit of a taste of the skill level, the skills you're going to need to do well in the NASCARs. But I mean, this is a Class 1 series itself, and this being round 3 and having had that jumble with the motor troubles in round 2 at Indianapolis, this is just going to make this, this is a big swing race, just like I'm going to be saying here shortly about the IndyCar one. It's going to be a big swing. As you know, in Camel GT, the team championship's a big deal. And I know with Andy there, Awoki there running as quick as he does, a lot of us are going to be fighting to get on the podium. And it's just like any other Willow Springs race. If we stay smooth, you don't have the full course yellows in this track, so you really have, in this series, so you really have to be, consistent. And I noticed that there's probably a qualifying pace that's about a half a second to a second faster than the race pace. And tire wear always comes into play here. Track conditions, temperature, the dirt. I really think that, Andy's going to run up front, and the rest of us, it's going to come down to strategy. There are 3 different strategies I could see playing out in this race, and I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which one's going to succeed. It's going to depend on who does it and who does it right. And I think that this is the one where, this is the race where, we're coming up on a big swing, coming up in the schedule with Laguna Seca, the Brickyard Grand Prix, and High Speed Ring. And I think this is the one that's going to show where it's going.
Yep, should definitely be a good race there Wednesday night, as that qualifying goes up tonight for Mobile One Pole Day. But that's going to be Wednesday. Thursday, we got an awesome event. It's our only non-point event of the series this week. We are racing at Dixie Union Motor Speedway. The late model sportsmen, they're going to run the Rebel 100, 225 lap segments over at Dixie Union with a halfway break. Again, no pitting. The kind of format we have for these late models always proved to be a good race. You don't really have to think about pit strategy. Just go out there and race as hard as you can. A little words to the wise, you might need to conserve a little bit, so I'm going to stay on that. But we should have a good race there. Obviously, your Sunoco Pole Day is going to go up on Wednesday night. Try and run the best lap you can. Again, this is not for points this week, so you just running on this straight. That's kind of a good speedway, just a little bit under a mile and a half. It's a good track. You guys ran Grand National there 2 weeks ago.
Oh, it was a great race in Grand National, and I think it'll be a great race at this one.
Yep.
Provided the server issues aren't a big deal, it's going to be an awesome race.
Yep, it should be cool. We have a lot of fun there in the late models. Again, that's just fun. Everybody's going for the win. That's Thursday night. Friday night, you want to talk up our Bridgestone 250, Carlos?
Absolutely. This is the swing race for the IndyCar series. We got Daytona, which is a scramble, Indianapolis, which which can be a bit of a scramble. And I think when you showed the points, it showed it. Kip and Colio and J Dog have exchanged first and seconds in the first two races and built a bit of a lead. Whereas you got Kip, who's 4-time defending series champion, and then myself, who is 3 times the series runner-up, looking to make up ground. But we've got 5 points races left. 3 of them are at Motegi. Myself, Kip, and Colio, obviously, we know are Motegi aces in the Indy cars. And so I know that all of us this is a swing race. We know that what we do in this race is really going to determine if you have any shot in the championship, because you can't try to make up too much ground as the races dwindle down. And Motegi is always about strategy. You got to pick the right pit strategy. You got to pick the right pit strategy that doesn't put you a lap down, that doesn't put you too far behind on old tires. It's obviously a crapshoot. It depends. We usually have a long green run at some point. So it really is going to come down to, this is the race that is going to determine what the rest of the season looks like. I think everybody will find out after this race how much focus they need to put on Indianapolis, as far as, everybody always puts a lot of focus on the Indy 500 because, we get a lot of part-time drivers that come out for just that race. But I think your season, you go into every IndyCar season the same way you do in Winston Cup with the Daytona 500. You say, okay, I want to run for the championship and I want to try to win the Indy 500. And if you get to the Indy 500 and you're way out of the points, then you will really, really focus on that race because that's going to be the gist of your season. That's going to be the peak of your season. And I can tell you myself, we'll know after Friday, whether or not you're running for a place in the standings or whether you're running for the championship, because we can't afford to lose much more ground to Colio and J Dog. And we're counting on the fact, I know that Kip probably is thinking the same thing I am. We're counting on the fact that some of the other guys don't have as much experience at that track as we do. And let's just face it, Motegi is the ultimate. It's been the ultimate racetrack for us. It's fast. It's strategy based. You got to be precise. You can easily throw the race away on pit row. And like I said, this is going to be the one that separates the men from the boys in terms of who's running for the championship.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, J Dog and Colio, they haven't faltered at all first 2 races. They've got a win apiece. It's really up to whether they have an issue or not at Motegi. And like I said, big win race in the championship. Speaking of championship, we're going to roll right on with the Saturday races. We're going to have our Winston West race. Out on the west coast there. They are also racing at the fabulous Willow Springs Raceway for the Winston West. That's also, like the IndyCar race, that's going to be in a public lobby. So that's going to be an awesome kind of shakedown for the Winston Cup racers that want to race on Saturday. Again, that's 5:45 in the public club lobby. And that evening, after GND Goodyear Pole Day closes down, we're going to have the Golden State 150. And that's going to be another fun race there, Carl. And you want to talk about that one?
Oh, yeah. The whole Willow Springs weekend, goes back to season 12, the whole GT6 era. Will likely go on into the future because it's our Riverside. And I know that you'll see a lot of Winston Cup guys probably run the Winston West race to get the track time. The G&D definitely helps you. All track time works. If you're a serious Cup driver, in the Winston Cup Series, looking to run the Winston Western 200 on Sunday, it's always going to help you to run the Camel GT and the Winston West and the G&D race. The races are very much strategy based as well as running fast and staying smooth. That's the only explanation for how I've had success at this track and had some podium finishes in, all the series that have run here is just, if you stay on the track, you're not, you lose 15 seconds every time or so you go off into the sand. And so you can be running, a second behind somebody, and if they're running away from you and they go off and you don't, that's 15 laps of work that you just made up for. And so it's really about smoothness. It's really about there's usually a big green flag run in the middle of the race. And then, we usually have one traditionally, and with about 10 to 15 to go, there'll be one that kind of resets it. So I think the strategy in the G&D race and by extension, even the Cup race, is you want to stay on the lead lap. You know that the burner up front, if there's an Awoki or Colio or somebody who really, the past champions of that race, you don't want to make the decisions that put you a lap down early in the race so that later on, because there will be, if let's say there's a 13 car field for one of these races, by the end of the race, even if there's been a handful of cautions, I guarantee you there's going to be 3-4 guys a lap down. And so you don't want to be, if you have a shot, you got to be in that group that's on the lead lap, at the end of the race. And so I think being smooth, playing the right strategy, watching what the leaders are doing, that really covers both the NASCAR races. But, the Winston Western 200 that you're probably moving on to next that's one of our biggest races. It's traditional. We run it the whole time I've been in the league, and I hope we run it forever because it's, I've been telling the guys in the test rooms, Willow Springs is a track that you got to learn to like it. Everybody says they don't like it, and it's like you got to tell yourself when you go there, I like this place. It's fast, it's precise, it separates the men from the boys. Once you start to like the track, then you'll start to do better and better at it. And and it's all from testing. When you put in the test time, you won't make the mistakes that the other guys that kind of, they turn a little bit, they only turn a few laps in the driver's meeting, then they're not going to be ready for what Willow Springs will throw at them.
Yeah, it's always a good track out there to the West Coast. Like you said, a lot of people say they don't like Willow Springs, and they're kind of hesitant to even practice on that track because they don't like it. But I don't see it coming off schedule anytime soon, and if you want to compete for one of the championships in our major stock car division, you're going to have to live with it. And obviously some of those road course ringers are also going to come into effect. The guys that normally run the Camel GTs, the guys that are really road course oriented drivers come out to try their hand in the stock car. That's always fun to see. We'll see a lot of that probably in Grand National. Guys that don't have class ones, and then the ringers that do, see them on Sunday. So.
They'll always shake it up, and it always shakes it up at the road races, And we enjoy it. We like filling the field, and I think it's fun to have those guys come and look down their nose at us for the night.
Yep, I think Coors Light Pole Day is going to be real fun too. Kind of watching who can throw up a fast time for pole qualifying. That's going to be all day Saturday. So should be fun. We'll see how it goes. Any last words there, Twindy, or we're wrapping up Sunday Cup Weekly?
Yeah, Twindy's put in a lot of time at Willow Springs. I'm sure he has a comment on what we're facing there.
It's just going to be keeping it on the track. Keep it on the track. You should be able to do good.
Yeah, that's all you need to do. I mean, repetition, stay on the track. The more laps you have on the track, the less likely you are to drive off the track. So pavement time is a necessity at this place.
Absolutely. This is one of those racetracks that you have to be smart. I was telling Twindy in a practice room, if you're the 8th fastest car at the track and you stay on the track, you'll finish 5th. If you're the 5th fastest car on the track and you stay on the track, you'll finish 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, there's always guys that are trying to push it a little too far, and they'll go over the edge. So, I mean, I know that's your strategy at the road courses. If you're not the fastest person, just run a smooth, conservative race, pick up some good points, because valuable championship points on the line. So I think that about wraps it up. We've run out of shit to discuss here on the SCL Weekly. Had another successful episode here, and we'll see you again next week from the SCRN studios. We'll see you next week.